today. I am Patricia. You might have seen my name on a weekly basis over and over and over again. Actually, I also happen to host a weekly vegan dinner currently held at the Opera Plaza Community Room in San Francisco. It's Wednesdays at 6 p.m. I invite you all to come and check it out sometime. I actually have some cards up here afterwards if you'd like to pick up a reminder card of when the dinner and where the dinner is going to be held. So with that said, today we're here for what? 15-minute vegan dinners. I'm not talking about opening a can of food, right? I think most of us could do that. I really want to focus on, of course, essentially vegan food. It means it's free of the animal products. Also for me, I tend to avoid any refined sugars, including, and also another tradition of good health keeping would be to avoid cooking with oil. I will use oil as a condiment, however, and so we're going to explore that in one of the dishes today. So do you all have a sheet, a recipe sheet for those who'd like one to follow along with today's demonstration? Good. Now I also want to offer that I'm not certain what you all are here to learn today, but if you have any questions during the time of the demonstration, please feel free to raise your hand or shout out so I can respond to your question for clarification. I want to let you know that I will be cooking for spring, summer, winter, and fall, or however you want to organize it. And today we're going to start off with a dish that is shockingly really tasty and yummy, and that's going to be our spring dish because it's the lightest on the palate instead of overwhelming your palate with fall and winter flavors. And that's a springtime soup, and I've entitled it a split pea soup. But actually what we're going to be dealing with is working with peas in their fresh state. Springtime's a wonderful time to get those peas. And I'm just going to quiz you guys all out before you start eating and getting foggy-headed. But anyone want to venture a guess how many grams of fiber are in this portion of 2 cups of peas? Anyone? Throw out?
16.
That's good. That's a good guess. Does anyone know how many grams of fiber maybe we might want to, at a minimum, consume in any day?
25 to 35.
You got it. And there's our nutritionist right out there in the audience. Actually, there are 20 grams of fiber. But here, now, this is like a question I often am queried on, and especially people out in the general public, and they'll say, what about your protein, Patricia? I'm going to die, I need more protein. Anyone want to venture a guess how many grams of protein are in this two cups of peas, green peas?
8.
8? Who said 8? Good guess, and you?
12.
Good guess? I think I'm going to shock you all. I was shocked. And sometimes I need to refresh my memory on these things. 20 grams of protein. I know! So when we're talking about dinners, there's a couple things to consider. Really what helps form your decision in dinner time is, well, what did I do all during the hours preceding dinner time, right? What about breakfast? Well, you know, there's the old adage, and some of you may be familiar with this, you're supposed to eat your breakfast like a king or like a queen, right? That means a bountiful breakfast of food. And then around lunchtime, you eat like more of a prince or a princess, right? A little bit modified. But come dinner time, if you do dinner time, some folks just opt out, especially if you have more of a low-key lifestyle, working in an office place, you may opt out of the dinner time. Other folks say, hey, I need that dinner. And it's at that time some people consider eating dinner as a pauper would, right? So maybe a little lighter, a little leaner, and this is a good dish to consider for that. So these are the peas, 20 grams of protein. I mean, once you see this dish prepared, you'll see how it really blends up and it's easy to consume. So you're going to want to start with your peas and just put these in a blender. Now, I often get asked also, not that I'm paid or receive any funding from Blendtec, but this has been a fabulous blender. I could not do the dinners and food that I prepare regularly without it. And the reason I say that is because the blender itself is able to, for lack of a better word, maybe just mouth through or chew through really hard stuff. such as almonds and nuts and chunks of raw vegetable. Now my recipe sheet, I believe here, calls for 4 cups of peas. I'm cutting the recipe in half for the purposes of the demonstration today. And I also call for cashews in this recipe. You know, cashews are not even a nut. They're a member of the drupe family. So I think peaches are a member of the drupe. I could be mistaken. Have any of you ever seen a cashew in its native planting or forest? It's actually, it has a poisonous outer coating, and it's the cashew nut inside of it that's edible. So it's really that wonderful creaminess that lends itself well to vegan cooking. So if you're one who wants to avoid soy products for producing a creaminess, a cashew is a good alternative for providing micronutrients that are often overlooked in a modern day diet. And what I've done here for today's demonstration, actually you'll be tasting the soup. It'll be coming out here in just a minute. I wonder where, let me pass this out. Let me get these folks over here. Pardon me? We can use the soup. Bring out the soup. So I'm just going to use almonds in lieu of a cashew for the demonstration model, and that's because they're going to blend up similarly. It will not give you a velvety texture as the cashews will, but the almonds I enjoy because they're going to blend up white and nice, even with the skin on them, right? Sure, go ahead, pass it around. The assistant is going to be coming up and giving you a sample of the split pea soup, as I've titled it. It's not a heated soup. You could heat it in a blender such as this, or a Vitamix, which has the reverse motor, which can heat up the soup. But I think you'll enjoy it just as it is. And I've added a few chopped onion. And I really believe with this one I've added caraway. I enjoy cooking with caraway. It's part of my native heritage to use caraway, so I enjoy using that in the dishes. And then salt, just a little bit, sea salt, not that iodized stuff. That stuff's going to put you in an early grave. It's poison to our bodies. So when you're going to the store, you need to pick up the next batch of salt. Seek out perhaps a pink Himalayan salt or a black Hawaiian salt. Those are nice exotic salts that once again have micronutrients that can help get you where you want to go. So I'm just going to dump all this in, right? I've been talking more than I've been cooking. So let's put that in there. And then I'm just going to add a bit of water. And so far here, you know, we might have spent, this is actually 16 ounces, so there's 2 cups of water in here. And I'm actually calling for 2 cups, but I have the recipe. So this is it. So if you want to just brace your ears for a moment, I'll blend this up for us. Your main heartland, if you will, if you're of your dinner component. You might want to serve this with some salad, but this is a good way to get in greens. I know green peas are often overlooked, but they're easily accessible, affordable, and as I've already indicated, very nutritious. So, did you all of you get a sample then of the split pea soup? Yes. I'm not going to strain it. I'm going to leave it as this is our sample since we already shared the samples. I'm just going to, for the purposes of this demonstration, put it in this container, and then I can make that available to anyone who wants to take it home with themselves for perhaps further. Maybe they can do something fancier with it. But that's all you do, folks. That's it. That's your dinner, and it's a beautiful color for spring. And I thought this just typifies springtime for me. So there you have it. That's your split pea soup. Yes?
How many servings do your recipes make?
You know, that's a good question. It varies between recipes, and it varies really on the individual. That's something also to consider. What have you consumed in the earlier hours of the day? You know, it's just either anywhere from half a cup to 1 cup, typically for a serving, or 2 cups if it's, you know, some people like to, quote, save up all day long and then say, woo, it's dinner time, I get to eat for the whole day. So it's really dependent on the individual. But typically I would say between 2 and 4 people they will serve, depending on how your meal is being added to, or the components to the dinner are being presented. So there you have it, and that's your split pea dinner. And it's nutritious, and it's vegan, and it's lovely. And you don't need any animal products to make a good split pea soup. So there you have it. I'm just going to put this over here so they can rinse out that container. And now we're going to go over to summertime. Now, I know we're in fall, but up in my hometown, a couple of counties north of here, this past week it was over 100 degrees. It was too hot. But I'm sure where you were, it was hot too. It was like, oh, I can't cook, don't want to eat. But then again, I'm not one to go out either. I don't want to, that doesn't appeal to me. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have a summer dinner on a hot evening. Now, I'm featuring a product of raw kelp noodles. How many here, with a show of hands, are familiar with the raw kelp noodle? Have had them? A couple of you, that's good. I love them. And you know why they're awesome? Because they're raw, no cooking required. They're a sea vegetable, indicating that you're getting a lot of the nutrients that aren't readily available in your regular diet, perhaps, especially a traditional American diet. And yet it's something you might want to look into incorporating into your daily food intake, some sort of sea vegetable, CV, and this is a good opportunity to get that. Also, it's a low carbohydrate, low to no carbohydrate. Is Janet here? And is someone here, if I could just hand this to you and pass it around, you can take a look at the nutrient profile. It has, as I was mentioning, the starchy carbohydrates are non-existent in this product. So that's also a plus. Whenever we mention the term noodle, of course, it usually indicates a starchy carbohydrate, starchy vegetable, and this isn't going to have the negative impact on your blood sugar. And a lot of people are interested in modulating and regulating their blood sugar. So that's also a benefit of the product. And you can pick that up. You can pick, I'm certain, I'm not in the area, so I don't have the opportunity to shop at Rainbow as much as I'd like. However, I find that at most natural food stores, and I believe in the only Asian food store in my town closed up, so I have to go to a major food natural store.
Korean? Looks like Korean in the writings.
Is it? Well, if anyone can translate it, I'd like to know what that translation is.
Oh, I'm not Korean, but I know the writing.
I can translate it.
Okay, wonderful. So just take a look so you know what
this says cup noodle.
Yeah,
but it just has Korean writing.
You know that, it's going to feed a lot. That package is actually this entire container. And you're going to see how it fluffs up and how it can, it's going to be very filling. Now, when I first started purchasing the kelp noodles, I don't know, a few years ago, it varies in price and it varies on, I guess, the outlet. So I want to say you can pick them up for under $2, but some places may charge $1 or $2 more, depending. They're very shelf stable. You can just buy them, you know, when you're at the store, and then you can, I don't know, they keep for months, I think, in the refrigerator. It's just a kelp noodle. And if you've never had the texture, it's a wonderful delight. So also, on the one last word on the kelp noodle, I wanted to pass the package around so you know what to look for in the store. But secondly, there's also a kelp noodle that's been infused with green tea, which is a wonderful, if you see it, grab that too. Why not? It's another source of good nutrition to come your way, and it has a nice flavor component to it. So my recipe for this sesame kelp noodle said to soak the noodle in warm water, drain and rinse. What I'm saying to soak the noodle for, you can eat it straight from the pack as it is. There's no need to rinse it. However, if you want a slightly warm noodle for your dinner, that's a good way to bring about a bit of warmth to your dinner, as well as to also soften the noodle itself, because it's quite crunchy by nature, but some folks may not prefer a grape nut approach to eating for the dinner. So it softens up the noodle a little bit. So I've already prepared that step for you, and I'm just going to place the contents in the mixing bowl before us, and I have it there. And then to add to that are other simple pantry ingredients that are health supporting. I indicate there to put a 1/4 cup of almond butter in your salad here today. And one thing I want to mention about the almond butter is I made this mistake, I think, just recently within the past week. You pick up a brand name, a natural food brand name of peanut butter or almond butter, and then you see it's all the good things you want, organic and whatever the case may be. And then I turn around and read the label, because for me, when I shop for nut butters, I just want the nut and nothing else, right? Maybe a little salt, but I get pretty fussy about that. And then I see they put sugar in almond butter, peanut butter. Try to avoid that if you can, folks. It's better to add your own if you want to prepare a dish with a bit of sweet. Just really, you have to be vigilant with some of these manufacturers and their labels. So always read the label and just take a look. Make certain it doesn't have that sugar to it. And then I also say I don't cook with oil, which is true. And yet, with the sesame oil that I've called for in this recipe, I'm not cooking it, right? I'm just merely adding it after, you're going to eat it in its state that it's been given to you in. And I like the sesame oil because, a little goes a long way, right? Just a little bit, and you have this wonderful infusion of toasted sesame. And secondly, on this condiment list is the ume plum vinegar. How many are familiar with perhaps macrobiotics? This is something referred to as a macrobiotic food. And what I enjoy about the ume boshi plum, and folks will often comment on my bean dips that I present on Wednesday nights, or my vegan cheeses I prepare. This will add very delicate, almost cheese-like flavor. It's difficult to describe in a Western mindset, but I enjoy this, and so it's going to add a bit of tang to your dish as well. And then lastly is the agave. Now, there's also a lot of bad press about agave. Oh, it's just as bad as sugar, blah, blah, blah. There's a couple of things that go through my mind. One is it's supposed to be lower glycemic, and that's because you're just not using it as much as you would in a traditional sugar product. Secondly, this is important too. There's a label right here. It says it, and this just cinches the deal for me. It says it's raw. If it's a raw product, how much refining really went into it? Sure, I'm sure there's some juice extraction, but for me, that's good enough. So I like it if that label on the product says raw. So with that, I'm just going to, bear with me. There it is. So what I've done, and I love this dish once again, not only is it easy, it's family friendly. Your kids, your spouse, you can all just get in the kitchen. So I've already measured out my almond butter, my vinegar, sesame oil, and agave right here. It's just, squish, squish, and you're done. So you want to add this, and this, I need to bring this out. I'm certain your mouths are watering. We're ready for the top noodles.
I think they're on the table.
Oh, they're on the table? Well, okay, she'll come out then and bring those out to you. So this is a dish, if you enjoy, you can use your hands to kind of mush things up into the dish to make sure the noodles are well coated. And I believe the sample that she's actually sending out, although it's not indicated in the recipe, I also had in my pantry is the black sesame seed. I enjoy it, once again, just for the aesthetic value, as well as the nutrient value and the crunch value. And also, what I didn't mention is both this dish, well, the smoked pea perhaps not so much, but with this dish I'm presenting to you today is simply a you know, a vanilla or just an entry-level dish. You can add to that any sort of seasonal vegetable that you happen to have in your kitchen at any given time. This dish would pair well with scallion, with red bell pepper, I think peas, even a green vegetable chopped up fine. Are you guys tasting that? How does that taste to you? Does that, and then this could even go on a bed of spinach perhaps to perhaps really fill up your bowl of food. And you can just see how this mixes, and you just kind of have to fluff it up a bit. And there you have it, and there's your meal. This is also a good dish for those folks. I prepared all my samples on Friday afternoon. Thank you. So this is a good dish to have. You can perhaps, a good way to approach your cooking is to perhaps devote a couple hours each week, just food preparation, so you have your essentials to go forth in the week without being desperate in the middle or the late to the week and saying, I don't have anything to eat for dinner. And here you have it. So I enjoy the crunchiness of the sesame seeds. And is the noodle still crunchy for those folks who have samples? Or is it a soft? It has softened. Well, I will make this available, and then you can taste this if you haven't already done so. This will be more of the crunchy. I think it's softened up because it's already been prepared since Friday. But otherwise, if you serve it out of the package, it's more of a crunchy noodle. So does anyone think that they could serve this for their own dinner on a hot summer dinner? Does that sound good? And I think it's a filling enough dinner for you folks that you're not going to be left feeling unsatisfied for your dinner meal. And there you have it. I love it. That's our summer meal. And 10 minutes or less. You can see how easy that was. So I'm just going to put the leftover demonstration food. Do any of you have any questions about the recipe or about the nutrition required in a dinner component dish? Yes?
Well, I don't remember which one, but they talk about some of the different things from the sea having high types of mercury and other things.
Yes.
Are the kelp noodles one of those that isn't like that?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. And when I say to the best of my knowledge, I'm not a scientist. I haven't personally tested this noodle. And that's an excellent question because we hear a lot of information, and often, you know, you're at opposite spectrums. And it leaves you in the middle just with your head spinning in confusion. It's very distressing. So from what I understand and what I've read, no. Otherwise, I wouldn't put that forth. I believe that some of the dried red seaweeds that might have the arsenic, I could be mistaken. And I'm glad you brought that up because I also want to stress, you know, good nutrition can only take you so far for good health, right? And a very key component is to ensure that your drinking water source is pure. And if you have the ability, if you use your tap water at home, you might want to get one of those home testing kits just to check it out. Check out what is that. Even if you don't use it to drink, you perhaps use it to shower with. And it's just good to know. You know, your water might be high in pesticides because we live in an agricultural area, or, you know, with the bay, there could be mercury pollution in that area as well. So it's just always good to check your water at home too and see what's coming out of that faucet. So did I answer your question on the seaweed?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So there you have it. That's our dinner for the kelp noodle. Easy, fast, and you didn't even have to light a flame, and that's what I really enjoy about it. And it's also a dish that is a good transition dish for vegetarians who are looking into more of a vegan program. This you don't even crave a cheese flavor because it's just, it doesn't require one. There's no need to not have that, that dairy component to the dish. So there you have it. Now, we're going to go on to our, let me see here, we're going to go on to our fall dish. And it's one of my personal favorites, spaghetti aglio e olio. So what that is oil and garlic spaghetti. Yes, it sounds so simple. Could it be true? Just to share a personal story, for me, one of my first positions as a teenager, and you can take this whole and wrap it up if you could. One of my first positions was a waitress server at an Italian family restaurant in the Midwest. And being a young student, like so many young students before me, you know, you're low on cash, and it's like, oh, I'm starving, what can I eat? So I'd often get a dish similar to this that they would serve. To me, it was the most delicious product I had ever had. And as I grew and matured and over the years, I thought, wow, how did she make that dish? It was just, to me, just called it home. And I've been able to recreate it in a way that I find is health supporting. And what we have here today is garlic. I want to talk about garlic just a wee bit because garlic is something that is one of those superfoods. It's antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral, right? So how many of us, though, can really just take a clove of garlic, as we often hear you're supposed to do what? For heart health, take 2 to 3 cloves of garlic raw a day? Yikes, can anyone chew a clove of garlic without feeling the skin on their tongue's gonna come off? No, probably not. And it's very harsh. And I gotta say, with this dish, you add a bit of oil and it encapsulates the sulfur molecules from garlic, right? So it makes it palatable as your mouth is not on fire. And it's quite a pleasurable experience, as my husband describes it. So with that said, we're going to start off with our garlic. I always use my garlic. I know they have garlic available in the stores. A garlic available in the stores that you can either purchase it chopped already, but this is a wonderful gadget. It's called a Susi press, S-U-S-I, from Switzerland. I don't know, mine's maybe 20, 25 years old. This is the design to get. There's other imitators, but I have not found one that's durable like this is. And it's just, who knows, it's tarnished with garlic oil. So over the years, I just want to make sure my oven's on or my little skillet is on, it is, and it's heating. So this is what I recommend you all to get. Just get one of these and you can buy a bowl of garlic and it should keep in your kitchen fresh for a pretty long time. There's no need to purchase the processed garlic. I also find though that for folks, people say, oh, you got garlic breath. It's always best to eat garlic with a buddy, right? But aside from that, what I also find is beneficial is with the fresh garlic, I notice it seems people's bodies, their livers and so on, are able to process fresh garlic over a dried garlic or over the jarred garlic. It seems it turns rancid, or perhaps not rancid, but something is altered, the chemistry of it. So use your garlic fresh, folks. So we're going to start off with 6 or 7 garlic cloves, and that's really going to be dependent on what you want. If you're feeling a little puny, fall time is a time of change. Sometimes this is often a time of year where people start to get a little ill and sick. I mean, load up on that garlic, right? So if you're starting to feel a little puny, garlic. And so you want to, and also if you just come home from work and it's been a really stressful day, this can be very comforting food. You're going to want your garlic and olive oil. But I know a lot of folks don't even want to use olive oil. What you can do in lieu of that is simply use your Kalamata olives in lieu of that and chop it up. So it'll have a beautiful black coloring to your dish. I've already prepared or already measured out our garlic and our oil and black pepper. This is a dish where you can either opt to use, depending on what you prefer, black pepper or red pepper. I just want to speak briefly on that because the pepper itself, some people find black pepper very irritating to their digestive system and to their whole nature. It just doesn't suit well with them, to their blood pressure. So that would be a better person to opt out for the red pepper flakes instead. Now this, what I'm pouring in here, is actually some of the cooking liquid I've used from the pasta. I have here some par-cooked spaghetti, just for the ease of the purposes of this demonstration. So what you're going to want to do is cook your spaghetti till tender firm. Do we all know how to cook spaghetti? Anyone have any questions on it? Because I could probably answer it. But one thing I do want to mention about cooking spaghetti, and I hear this frequently, and it just unnerves me a bit, because oftentimes the person presenting the cooking demonstration will say, hey, season the water. They say season the water with some salt. So like, why? That's so, it's indiscriminate use of salt, if you ask me. I have a tendency to only apply salt after my food is cooked if I need it. I avoid using salt on the table because I think we can become over-dependent on the salt itself. So what you want to do is prepare your spaghetti as I have here, and then reserve some of the, can you all see, there's a, I don't know, there's quite a bit of liquid in here. I probably don't need that much, but I'm just going to go with it anyway because this is my cooking demonstration model. You want to reserve some of this water from the spaghetti because that's going to actually help emulsify your sauce and actually help bind your sauce and make it a cohesive dish. So you reserve some of that water and you put it back in the pan, you bring it up to a boil, and then you add, as I had started to mention here, your oil, and I can turn it off really right now. We don't need to cook it.
What kind of spaghetti did you use?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because I'm actually offering 2 separate types of spaghetti, and I don't think you guys, has anyone received a spaghetti sample yet? Let's go ask her to bring out spaghetti samples. Can you bring out spaghetti samples, both the gluten-free and the meat one? Thank you. So there you have it. This is actually what I'm offering, because a lot of folks want to avoid any type of gluten. So for that, for the purposes of this demonstration, I provided for you a brown rice. We'll have a sample. You can just tell her or ask her, maybe you want to try both. A brown rice spaghetti. The only issue when you're cooking with a brown rice spaghetti is, well, it breaks down, right? You're going to have like little spaghetti pieces, not a nice long 12-inch long noodle. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're going to go with gluten-free, or you can use a traditional whole wheat noodle, and there's several organic brands that are tasty and good. Just if you find a noodle that you like to use, go with it. And I use a thin spaghetti for this dish because, you know, the thicker forms of pasta, well, they take longer to cook, and actually, I don't really care often for a thicker pasta, just a little bit to get that good garlic into my system. So I'm going to bring my water back up to a boil, and then once that starts, then I'll add the, let's see here, as I was mentioning, the oil, the garlic, and the black pepper for this dish. It's beginning to smell like garlic. And as I was preparing this dish for my family a couple of weeks ago, my husband said, I can smell something really good from outside of the house door. So before he even got into the house. So perhaps if your neighbors don't care, oh, well, depends on how you live, but it does smell. It's a very wonderfully fragrant dish. And just, you don't cook the garlic, I want to stress that. You just merely put it in raw. And what I need from, oh, here it is. Then I'm just going to add my spaghetti. It's been par cooked, and just dress that up. So are some of you who are sampling, what does that taste like to you? Is that nice? I mean, why go out and spend a crazy amount of money on something that you can do at home that's so much more health supporting for you? And then to that, yes?
What's the first bag you put in?
A first bag was spaghetti, I believe. No, the first bag was the cooking liquid, the pasta water.
No, after that.
The seasoning, olive oil,
Okay.
and garlic, and black pepper.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. And then to that, you will also want to use perhaps some nut. I like the texture variation. I don't have the genetic indicator for being able to appreciate pine nuts, even though many people enjoy pine nuts, and that would be a traditional nut to add to this. I like walnuts, and walnuts are a good thing to like because they provide a good source of omega-3 fatty acids for a person. So I like to add a little bit of nut. A little bit goes a long way. Once again, no need to cook it, no need to roast it, you just put it in there. And then also, not lastly, but maybe perhaps most importantly, is the green component. Parsley. It's one of those foods, as an herb, you really want to try and work into your weekly or daily regimen of adding foods. Parsley is one of the most richest superfoods there are out there. Yes. And you just add it chopped, rinsed, and then raw, and you have a beautiful fall time dish to which you could add any of a myriad of fall time vegetables, red veggie for color, or anything that suits your palate. And I enjoy this dish because, once again, it's a dish that's good for vegetarians who are perhaps seeking to transition to more of a plant-based solely diet. And I don't believe this dish calls for anything else to it. It doesn't call out for dairy for me. I can enjoy it just the way it is. And I hope you do too. So, is that something you guys think you could do for a quick? Yeah, I think that was really easy. It's low stress. It's most likely an item you'll have in your pantry, and then you can get back to living in life, right? So I enjoyed this dish, and I hope you do too. I'm just going to put it in this Pyrex. Does anyone have any additional questions on the recipe? Once again, when I say recipe, that's almost a misnomer. These are merely cooking guidelines. We're not baking. I think it's only traditionally in a baking environment, which you'd have to be pretty precise in your measurements. This is cooking. And cooking, well, you know, it's not as critical to be precise. These are just guidelines to give you inspiration to prepare food that's good for you personally and good for your family. So there you have it. And that's a good lunch too if you don't have to be around a lot of people that day. So let's go here now finally to our wintertime dish. Our wintertime dish is some time of year where we really do need something perhaps more warming. We don't live in Hawaii. It's going to get cold and rainy, and we're going to want something warm and nourishing. And there's nothing worse than wanting something warm and nourishing and only having your choices are from a freezer section option list, or perhaps from a, well, you know, some other source that you're less than thrilled about. So this is where I'm going to come in with the chickpea a la king. Once again, you know, as a youth in my home economics, that's when they taught home economics. In my home economics class, this is one of the dishes I first learned. Of course, it wasn't a vegetarian dish. Yes, there you go. And it's a basic dish that you want to have in your repertoire of knowing how to cook. Because the white sauce that you're going to learn how to make today is quick, and it's going to serve a multitude, literally a multitude of approaches to eating happily and healthfully as a vegan. This white sauce can serve you well in perhaps even as a white sauce vegan pizza. It can serve you well in anything else that a traditional white sauce would need to have. So let's get started with our chickpea a la king. And I like it because it reminds me of, for those who enjoy pot pie dinners, for example, this is a good dish where you could actually turn it into a baking component and put a vegan crust on top or underneath, and bake it as you would a pot pie if you're doing some entertaining and would like that approach to it. So I actually need to holler out to a crew. I need the blender to do this dish. Pardon me. Oh, there it is. Thank you. And we're going to be frying the chickpeas in about 3 minutes. Thank you. So here we go. Home stretch right here. We have our blender nicely rinsed. And what are we going to do? We're going to go with more water. I believe I used the full measure of water here, but I'm just going to give us 2 cups to start with. So we're going to pour that in the blender, and then I have here cashews, which we've already discussed, and then I also had a requirement for something called a chicken style seasoning. Now, how many of you are familiar with chicken style seasoning? No? Okay, a few. I just want to talk about it quickly because it's one of those vegetarian foods that you may think, what in the world? But they serve it in the bulk bin style, bulk bin section. Usually, I think there are some manufacturers of the product, but if you can, it's merely a selection. It's kind of whitish, maybe with some yellow and green flecks of parsley, and yellow flecks, I believe, of turmeric or some other natural product. But it's a powder, and it does well with savory flavorings of food. And it goes well with this dish. So you can just scoop it up from the bulk bin section. But it's a vegan product, yes.
Is it like bouillon?
It is. I guess that would be a good, yeah. It's like a bouillon or a veggie stock, only it's in a powdered form. It's not my favorite thing to have on hand. I'm one I would probably use my own veggie stock. But once again, we got to serve the purposes of our, vegan dinner in 10 minutes or less. So that's what I'm going to say. You know what, though? If you don't have this in your cupboard, you can always turn to perhaps some other herbs you might have that you enjoy. A couple of them would be, that roll off the tongue really easily. Your savory herbs of parsley or sage or thyme, marjoram, rosemary, a little pinch of this, that, or whatever is going to lend a really homey, seasonal flavor. So we have a chicken style seasoning. Once again, I'm calling out the garlic, and that's just only for a nutritional component. You may not like the garlic in this dish. I'm kind of conflicted with it. It's only because sometimes the garlic doesn't go well with a white sauce, perhaps, or it's not as palatable with the noodle. But I like to add it because it's so health supporting. So in is the garlic. Now with my garlic, I've already put it in the bag here. I'll take it out since I've already sanitized my hands. But with the garlic here, and especially with the blender as we have before you, this is a garlic clove that is unpeeled. Because I cook a lot of food, and I cook a lot of food for a lot of people. And I'm not going to peel garlic for a lot of people all the time. And that's the beauty of a wonderful blend tech. There's no reason why you should ever have to peel garlic or even onion. It's a good way to get extra nutrition in your diet. I'm talking if it's relatively clean. We all know sometimes when you pull your onions from your garden or from the farmer's market, there's more dirt on there than you'd like, and you have to peel it. But otherwise, just leave it whole. It's easier and gets your dinner to you quicker. So you have your garlic, and then tapioca starch. Once again, primarily these dishes are all gluten-free. And I opted for tapioca starch because it thickens quickly, it's also gluten-free, and it's a relatively less refined product than your traditional wheat flour will be. And one thing about the tapioca starch, additionally, is it's from a cassava root. It's dried and it's ground. It's readily available. One thing to be mindful of is with the tapioca starch is that it will break down over exposed, prolonged heating times. It'll go back into a liquid. So depending on what you're making, either a pudding or a thick sauce like this, it performs wonderfully and beautifully. And it's a velvety texture. So you have your tapioca, and I'm going to add that to our blender right here. Pardon?
That looks more than 3 tablespoons.
Well, it does, because I've also added the 1/4 cup of tapioca starch to it. So you're right, there's more than just 3 tablespoons. I have all my dry stuff in there. And then to that, I'm going to add the onion, which I've just rough chopped. No beauty queens here, you just got to get the vegetable in there. And any other savory vegetable would do. Well, you could also place celery in here. It might give it a more texture. This is going to blend up really nice and easily and smooth. So here's your onions, just roughly chopped. And once again, onions, I haven't really studied. I know a lot of folks don't do well with onions. But another reason nutritionally to incorporate onions, even raw, into your diet is because of the cancer-fighting properties that they provide for you. So is that a little strong for you folks?
It's a little strong.
It is strong, and it's cold, and I would traditionally serve this warm. So there you have it, and I have everything in here I need to add. I'm just going to place this in here. into the heated skillet and bring this up to heat, and then as it heats up, it's going to thicken. Therefore, you're going to want to stir it, boil for a bit until it starts to thicken up, and it will actually pull away from the skillet as it heats up. While this is heating up, I want to speak about the chickpeas. These are the chickpeas, and they did not come from a can. I get these from the bulk bin too, and I recommend you all do the same. And that's because canning is just another way of getting and purchasing a processed product. We don't always know what we're buying. There's often, frequently, there will be added salt and some other components, perhaps a preservative. And I really would opt out of that if I could, so I do. And that's why I purchase these in bulk. I will place these into a crock pot, slow cooker, as I prepare a lot of my vegetables. All the veggies just go straight into the crock pot. As with the chickpeas, yes?
What's the difference between the chickpea and the garbanzo?
It's merely semantics. The chickpea is the English version of the word garbanzo. So, as American here, they're chickpeas. But if I were in Spain, I'd be saying garbanzo. So you're right. I think in some labels they'll say garbanzos, and that's because the manufacturer is Spanish speaking, usually.
So you can use either or.
Yes, but you're going to want these yummy homemade dried ones because, secondly, the ones when you prepare them yourself, the ones in the can are tougher. They have a tougher skin. These are nice and softer, and plus you can prepare them. You can prepare a whole bunch at any given time. And as with any other protein, bean, legume, it freezes very, very well. So you can just put your leftover right into the freezer and take it out for another quick meal. Yes, Fred?
Do you have to soak it if you put it in the crock pot?
No, and that's another good question. Greta asked about soaking, and actually, since it is a slow cooking process, it's going to take about 4 to 6 hours. That's going to provide for you the opportunity for the chickpea to soften up on a slow process on its way to cooking. So it intervenes in the process of soaking, actually, Greta, because you're covering this with about 2 to 3 inches of water as it is. So it's just kind of happy in the water there, just kind of getting, all good. And then it starts to slowly cook. Uh-oh, I'm doing too much talking, not enough stirring. But as you see here, it's starting to thicken up a little bit. It's a little foamy because I just blended it up, and it's hard perhaps to see. But perhaps if you look in the mirror, you can see how it's starting to pull away from the bottom of the pan. And then what we're going to do is merely add the chickpea. This is a good dish to add, once again, any sort of colorful vegetable you like, a red or green. It's a good dish for spinach or leafy greens. It really goes well with leafy greens. Then, what you would also perhaps be doing although I don't have it for you to enjoy today, is perhaps a nice gluten-free grain to pour over this dish. Quinoa is an excellent way to get that because the quinoa itself is actually a seed, though we talk about it being a grain, and it only takes a mere 10 minutes to prepare quinoa. And it's a good source of so many other nutrients. I like it, most people like it, and it's easy to digest. So there you have it. It's pretty much thickened. That would be our dinner right there. And like I say, you could also just omit, I did say this, you could omit the chickpeas and just do solely vegetable base if you like, or any other product that you think speaks to you. And it's very nourishing, and it could also be a good basis if you don't want to add the chickpea. This is a good sauce for gravy, either for breakfast foods like a nice biscuit, a vegan biscuit and gravy, or even a lunchtime meal, something that is compact and nutrient dense and enjoyable. So I think that wraps up my dinner talk today. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for coming. And if you have any questions or would like to contact me, I have a business card. I also have the vegan dinner cards. I have magnets. Yes. Yes, please. Help yourself. I also have the samples available for you to take home if you'd like. Sure, I can put this all in the... these I'll take that with me. Yes. Yes, understood. Yes, of course. My focus was merely on the quick dinner. I'm gonna scoop up this here, because I think it's had a